Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars.
SoundCartel.
From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. Breadcrumbing. It's the new dangling of the carrot. Like a boss who promises a promotion or a bonus, but never actually follows through. It's not something that Karen Gately, founder and CEO of HR consultancy Corporate Dojo, recommends at all. She says it's dishonest, disrespectful, and might superficially achieve an immediate goal, but its impact could spell disaster for the long term. So, if breadcrumbing is all of those negative things, why, Chris Ashmore asks Karen, do some bosses still do it?
Yeah, look, in my experience, it can be typically because the organisation isn't ready for whatever reason, whether that is, for example, to give somebody a promotion or to give them an opportunity to earn more money, but they don't want to lose them. And sometimes that's because the person's critical to the organisation's success, or they've got technical knowledge that's difficult to replace, or they've got a critical project that they're working on and really can't afford for this person to move on. So again, they make promises about, oh, well, if you stay with us at this point, if you hang in there, then down the track, this is what we're going to be able to give you. Sometimes leaders will say to me that they're really just trying to give people bite-sized chunks of learning and to keep them feeling like they're progressing. And I think that's a really valid strategy, but that's actually very different to breadcrumbing. Breadcrumbing is there's not transparency, there's not the clarity or honesty that we need.
Is it a generational attitude, do you think? For example, do some older bosses think that millennials, for example, don't tend to stick around and this will entice them to do so?
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's necessarily older bosses. I would just say it's actually inexperienced or ineffective leaders that will go down this path of breadcrumbing, because I think, as you just pointed out there, when it comes to managing the millennial generation, there's no doubt that if we can make their career path visible and if we can help them to feel like they are actually learning, growing, moving forward, progressing, then they're entirely more likely to stay. So, often I will say to leaders, you don't need to take this person from where they are now the whole way down the path in one step. Break it down. For example, if they're an individual and they want to be a manager, maybe the first step is actually managing projects or taking more responsibility from within their role. Maybe the step after that has been a team leader. Maybe after that they're a supervisor. So breaking down those career steps means that they're more likely to be patient because they actually like change. They actually like progress. They actually like to feel like they're moving forward. So that is an effective strategy. But again, as we're talking about, that's not the same as just empty promises and dangling carrots that aren't going to really lead to the reward.
What are some of the dangling carrots? Any particular examples of breadcrumbing tactics that bosses use?
Yeah, so the classic is, no, we can't afford a pay rise now, but ultimately, we'll consider it. We'll consider it in 6 months' time, or we'll consider it in 12 months' time. And if there's a lack of sincerity in that, we get to that 6 month or 12-month point, and then we're coming up with another excuse as to why we can't actually deliver on that. The other classic is around promotion. People start to look outside of the organisation to be able to take that next career step, and we try to retain them by saying, no, don't go anywhere, just around the corner, there's going to be a great opportunity for you. And then, again, we're not actually delivering on it. So it's really around that reward, that recognition, that career advancement, but also learning and development. People are screaming out for training or opportunities to learn in whatever ways they're looking for. And, again, it's that promise that, we'll get to that. We don't have the budget for it this quarter or this year, whatever it is, but we'll get you ultimately to go and do that. And then 2 years down the track, we still haven't given them any of those kinds of development opportunities.
If we look at it the other way, though, are there some employees that perhaps are expecting too much and they're asking for promotions or bonuses too often, and this is a way for managers to placate that, to stop them from nagging?
There's no doubt that sometimes people are impatient or they're entitled or, they're asking for too much. I'd say that it's not as common as a lot of leaders would argue. But again, breadcrumbing is not an effective strategy because we're not being real with people. We're not actually having those conversations. So in my mind, if as leaders we have the courage to have the tough love conversation, for example, that relates to someone being a little bit ahead of themselves and not really understanding how much more they have to learn before they can earn that promotion, then we're not doing our jobs. Our job is to coach people, and included in that is holding up the mirror of truth, being really clear around, okay, this is the outcome that you want to achieve, here's what it takes, and here's where you currently are, right? And then giving them that clear insight to, well, what steps can they take? What things do they need to learn before, you are actually going to be willing and able to support them in those endeavours.
Can breadcrumbing be a good thing, though?
Yeah, well, again, as we've been talking about, is really just the terminology, right? So breadcrumbing by nature is a dishonest thing. I read someone the other day said that it's that deliberate, opaque relationship. If you look at it in the context of the dating world, again, it's leading someone on. It's indicating that you're interested when you're not really, or you're not fully committed, right? So if we look at that in the business world, then that's never a good strategy. But as I was saying before, having clear career paths, having coaching conversations, giving people bite-sized chunks of learning opportunities, helping them to take baby steps rather than trying to just leap ahead, all of that's important in helping people to learn, to grow and ultimately be successful. So I wouldn't say breadcrumbing is ever an appropriate strategy, but slowing down that pace and taking things step by step can absolutely be an important strategy.
Well, if breadcrumbing is not really the ideal strategy, how then do you suggest bosses motivate staff?
Well, I think the starting point is to, again, put on the coach's hat, right? So your approach to each individual may need to vary in terms of the way you actually interact and engage with them. But, the whole objective of that is let's build strong relationships where we're actually in a position to influence the way people are thinking, the way they're feeling, the way they're behaving, the way they're growing, the way they're performing. So if we can get close to people, understand who they really are and take that proactive step, then again, we're more likely to keep them engaged with what it is that we're trying to achieve as a business. And then that leads me to the second critical point, is that we need to have a clear vision. And again, it's very easy to say this. We all know as business leaders that we need to have a vision, we need to have a strategy. But what does that actually mean? Our vision is, what does the future look like? What do we actually want to achieve? And how are we going to actually achieve that? And how does each individual play an integral role in making that happen? So most human beings enjoy feeling like, A, they're valued, that they really are able to make a difference in achieving the organisation's outcomes. And they're more likely to be energised and engaged again if they can see that they are a part of something that is bigger than themselves, right? So if the organisation has aspirations and they believe that they are achievable, because I think there's no point telling people, oh, here's the big dream, and then everyone just goes, yeah, right, that's not going to happen. We need to be able to articulate how we believe it's possible. Then, again, people are more likely to actually buy into that and we actually want to be part of that. And then we need to keep our progress visible. So sometimes, again, we set a vision, we set a strategy, we help everyone to understand how they can play a part, but then we don't actually check in and say, how are we tracking, And doing things like celebrating wins is important. Sometimes, the organisations we're working with are so busy achieving all of these great things, but they don't stop and smell the roses and actually help everyone to see that we are actually winning. We are actually making progress. And that's especially important when times are tough. So again, we need to make sure if we want people to continue to be motivated, that they know what game they're playing, they know why it matters, they've got some emotional investment in that, and they can see that, yeah, we're getting there, this is worthwhile, I should continue to dig deep and invest my energy to actually make this happen. And critically, it's about maintaining healthy, strong relationships. And clearly that's one-to-one between the leader and the individuals that they are responsible for, but also within the group environment. So one of the most common drainers of people's energy, and the reason why they just start to give you a compliant contribution, is because they've lost trust or they've lost respect. They don't actually feel that those relationships are healthy for whatever reason. And then they'll just do enough to keep their job, and clearly there's so much lost opportunity in that. We need people to actually bring their full potential, and the reality is that's a choice that they make. People choose to thrive in your organisation or not. So if you want them to be motivated, then, again, make sure they've got energy because they're in an environment that is respectful, that is focused on our collective success.
That was Karen Gately, CEO of Corporate Dojo. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.